fist up tight. We'll never lose this race, not without a fight. We're gonna love like it's going out of business. Mr. and Mrs. going the distance. We're gonna love like it's going out of business. Mr. and Mrs. going the distance. Ooh.
Well, good morning, Forward Point. How are you doing this morning? Good. My name is Jimmy, as you may or not have heard from the rabble-rousers out there, the hecklers. So good to see you all here this morning. How many of you guys have been here for the entire series, the Love Song series? Yeah. You guys deserve some kind of special, like, a weekend getaway or something that Forward Point will not be providing for you, but maybe you can provide for yourself. At the beginning of the school year, my wife is a teacher, Chazlet. You may have met her before. She's a teacher. And last year, she had the honor of being able to teach at Webster, which is just less than probably a mile away from her house, and it made it very easy for our morning commutes. I could take her to work and be back in literally less than probably 5 minutes. And as the school year kind of came to an end, she started talking about wanting to try for a couple different positions that were kind of a promotion from being a teacher. And then she also kind of wanted to get into maybe a school where the students were a little tougher, a little harder environment. So the opportunity came up for her to go to Danforth as an instructional coach for teachers. And if you're familiar with the city school district, Danforth is kind of one of the harder schools in the district, and it's a lot farther than a mile from our house. So as part of our conversations and whether or not we were going to do this, granted there was going to be a raise in pay, and it also would require, extended hours for her at her school. But it was also going to require of me to have to get up early in the morning to help her get the kids ready and, take her. Now it's going to be probably a 30-minute trip to school there and back. And this is really going to have an impact on my life, right? But obviously, this is something that she wanted to do, and there was the pay increase that always has a nice kind of ring to it. So we together made this decision that we were going to do this, and we were going to kind of have to change our morning routines, but we were going to do this together for the sake of this calling for her to go to Danforth. Well, as things would progress, and what we've come to recognize is I like to sleep in the morning, all right? I am not a morning person, so getting me out of bed is kind of hard to do. So it's usually the routine where she has to come in and say, usually in kind of the sweetest, threatening voice she has, some kind of, "Hun, are you going to come up and help me with the kids?" And that's usually like the final key that I have to, okay, I better get out of bed. And I kind of, waddle into the living room where the kids are, and I sit on the couch, and I ask them to snuggle with me, and I proceed to usually fall asleep on the couch, not providing any kind of help whatsoever to my wife, right? And what I begin to notice is there's kind of this gap between my intentions and my actions, right? My intentions at the beginning were like, yeah, I got this. I can help you in the morning. It's going to be no problems. I'll be able to take you. And what's happened is my actions are such that she now, instead of having to get 3 kids ready in the morning, she usually has to get 4 kids ready in the morning, me being the 4th kid, right? And there's this gap. There's this space between what I intended to do and what my actions are actually doing. So here we are in week number 5 of this love song series, and some of them have been a little scandalous at times, and we're probably still going to tap into some scandalous things here this morning as we wrap up what's going on here in the book of Song of Songs. But our prayer is that today, is really going to be maybe the most helpful and practical morning of the whole series to really prepare for marriage, or if you already are married, to really be able to invest in your marriage. Because there is a difference between what we intend to do and our actions and how it really plays out. it could probably be argued that the biggest challenges in marriage come down to these types of moments where, there's this difference between what my wife expected me to do and what I intended to do and what I actually did. Nobody walks into marriage thinking, right, or planning to be a jerk or a loser or difficult to live with, right? But we walk in kind of with these big eyes thinking we're going to be the best husband or the best wife, and no matter what happens, we're going to be able to live on love for the rest of our lives. But this space between our intentions and our actions and what we do and don't do usually causes some tension in our relationships. When Chaz wakes me up in the morning to help her out, I intend from the beginning of the year to each morning when I go to, each evening when I go to bed and when I wake up to be there for her and to help her with this process of getting everything in order. But something happens between when I wake up and when I roll out of bed and when I get to the couch that I just can't help myself and fall back to sleep, right? Everyone is relaxing on the couch and they want to snuggle, and it's just the perfect, little 5-minute power nap isn't going to hurt anybody. Besides, maybe the kids I'm snuggling with and the snoring they have to endure, but it's a different story. And wouldn't you know that as soon as I'm out and those little stinkers get up and they go ask mommy for something, right? Like they kind of throw me under the bus, like daddy's sleeping and can't be helpful. And the next thing I know, I'm being awakened by the booming voice of my wife asking why I'm not helping like I said I would, right? Because of this tension, this gap between what I intended and my actions. And the funny part is, right, we tend to judge other people based on their actions, yet we judge ourselves based on our intentions, right? Don't I get some kind of points because I intended to help, right? Yes, some kind of half a point because I at least made it to the living room and onto the couch, right? You gotta throw me a bone here or something, right? No, you're right, yeah. I'm responsible for my actions and not my intentions. My intentions do not affect Chaz one way or the other. My actions do. And we judge ourselves by our intentions, but others by their actions. And I like to get the main idea for, my message early on in the week. I try to go over it so I have the whole week to kind of think through the different stories that I'm going to use and, what's going to be applicable, because it kind of takes me a while to think on the spot for different stories. And wouldn't you know that as I was thinking about this idea, I started to struggle with coming up with a story where my life wasn't matching up, right, with my intentions and my actions. Because to me, when I look at my life and the stories, I judge myself by my intentions. So all my stories are always like, no, that doesn't work because I'm still a hero in that situation, right? So I'm here struggling and trying to figure out, what story I'm going to use. The days are going by and nothing is really coming to mind. And I kid you not, as I start to think, well, maybe there's a story where I can use Chazlet as the example, right? And it literally, like in minutes, all of a sudden stories are coming to my mind where she did not fit the bill between her intentions and her actions, right? And all of a sudden, as I'm in the shower thinking about this, I get out and I open up the shower, and right there, I go to get dried off, and the towel is not in the bathroom, right? Because my wife has this sick habit of taking a shower before me, and she takes the towel with her into the bedroom, and she just leaves it there. And she doesn't bring it back. And I don't know how many times we talked about it, and she always says, okay, I'm going to do better, right? Her intentions are that she's going to bring it back into the bathroom, but still, she never does it. Right, and immediately, it's like the story it's like a light shining from heaven. Oh, right, I had this literally in minutes, a story of where her intentions are not lining up with her actions. And isn't that the way, right? Because I judge myself based on my intentions, but her on her actions. And what I figured, when I think about it for a while, and I start to, again, I don't like to put other people under the bus, and I'm going to come up with a story for myself. So I asked my wife, right, do you have a story about me where I know it's going to be hard for you, but where my intentions did not match up with my actions, right? And she's sitting there next to me, and there literally within minutes, she comes up, with this story about how I don't help her in the mornings like I said I was going to, right? It probably was a record for the speed at which she came up with this story, because it's easy for us to judge ourselves by our intentions and what we, wish we would do versus our actions and how it really plays out in what we do. And that's just kind of the nature of who we are. So what we want to do in this final week of Love Song is learn how we can close this gap between our good intentions and our actions. So we can be an incredible blessing to our spouse and develop this kind of intimate marriage that God wants us to have, which I believe we probably all want to have. So we're going to look at 3 simple thoughts here. If you're taking notes, I encourage you to write these down, or if you're following along in the YouVersion app, I would encourage you to save this. These are going to be 3 very simple thoughts that I guarantee you, if you can put into practice, they're going to pay off huge dividends and make a difference in your marriage. There's often just real power and simplicity, and these are going to be real simple, just these statements, how you can easily remember that if you allow the Holy Spirit to bring these to memory and actually act upon them in your life, then these are going to be statements that can be life-giving to your future marriage or even for your marriage now. All right, so statement number 1 is this idea: if you think something good, then say it. Right? If you think something good comes to mind, just in that moment, say it, text it, tweet it, wherever you're at, send smoke signals if you have to, but say it. Communicate what it is that comes to mind, right? Solomon said that there is power in the tongue, right? There's life-giving power. There's power of life or death based on what we speak and the words that we use. And if you want to have a life-giving marriage, then start using life-giving words. So the challenge is, whenever you start to criticize or put down, you are actually seeping poison into your relationship. All right, so I'm going to challenge you every single time that you think something positive about your spouse, to say it. Don't rob your spouse of that blessing. Say it, spray it, do whatever you have to do to communicate that blessing, whatever it takes. Every single time you think something good, bless them by saying it. In our story here, Solomon is, again, the master complimenter. We've probably heard all sorts of things. Sometimes it even goes overboard, right? It's like, Solomon, did you realize this was going to be read in public? You probably shouldn't have said that. You should have saved that for the private collections, right, of words to your boo here. But again, whatever comes to his mind, he just allows himself to speak and to communicate to his wife here, to the love of his life. But it just reinforces this idea that he doesn't leave anything on the table. He just says it all. He thinks it, so he says it, and it makes all the difference. And if you remember in week 1, when he started to compliment her, where did he start? Do you remember? He started with her head and then began to work his way down, right? So here, not wanting to ever be accused of using the same line more than once, Manny, here in chapter 7, he starts with his feet, or with her feet, and he starts to work his way up, all right? He gets a little creative here. So here we are in chapter 7. He says, "How beautiful your sandaled feet, O prince's daughter. Your graceful legs are like jewels, the work of an artist's hands," right? Now, I don't know about you, and I'm probably going to ruin this verse for you. When I started to think about this idea of your graceful legs are like jewels, the work of an artist's hands, right? I started to kind of think of the Christmas story, the lamp and I don't know, it's probably not super spiritual there, maybe scandalous, but it's just where my mind goes, so I thought you might get a kick out of that. And he goes on, he says, "Your navel is a rounded goblet that never lacks blended wine." Yeah, I have no idea what that means, okay? Maybe she has an innie that's really big and can be used as a wine glass. I have no idea. You probably don't want to use that one, Steve, later on with Katrina, okay? And he says, "Your waist is a mound of wheat encircled by lilies." All right, guys, so I'm just going to go on a limb here. You probably should not liken your wife's waist to a mound of anything, okay? It probably will not bode well for you. So Solomon obviously has some kind of special relationship that we have not yet achieved yet. So don't use that one, all right? But then he moves on again. He continues his journey northward, and we find ourselves among familiar friends. You may have remembered the twin fawns, all right? Your breasts are like twin fawns of a gazelle, all right? What he's doing is he's complimenting her very, very specifically. He's not just thinking these things about her and kind of chuckling to himself. And no, he's verbalizing them and he's writing them down for her to have kind of this history of them so she won't forget. And in fact, what is the most common and complimentary and loving thing that most couples, even probably, ones who say they have a great marriage, what is it that most couples say? I love you, right? Love you. Ditto. Love you more, right? Love you. Right? It's kind of the most common thing you probably say back and forth between you and your spouse, right? And if you want to change the dynamics of your relationship, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage you to simply add one word to that statement and then fill in the blank, all right? So instead of just love ya, or, love you, or love you more, or, love you the mostest, right? Instead of just kind of stopping there, add this word, because, and fill in the blank with something different every single time. All right, so write this down. Say, I love you because, and then you fill in the blank. Right, I love you because you're my best friend. I love you because you're incredibly faithful to me. I love you because I'd rather spend my life with you than anyone else in the world. I love you because you are way too good for me. I love you because you're the best mom in the whole wide world. Right, I love you because, and you fill in the blank. One of the questions I get asked by my wife a lot is, why do you love me? Right, she's kind of always asking me this question. And I do not do well when I'm put on the spot, right? When you put me on the spot, I was never a really good test taker, so when you ask me a question on the spot and it's worth points to a grade that's going to determine if I fail or pass, right? I kind of freeze and I get nervous and I choke and I don't do well when I'm put on the spot. I tend to draw a blank and I forget, who I am and how I got wherever I was, where I'm there, right? So she puts me on the spot with this question. It's like, feels it's going to impact the course of the rest of our marriage together. And I just start to draw a blank about what I should say, right? Because I tend to try to be, romantic and I want it to be meaningful, and put on the spot, I mumble and I can't think of anything. And so whenever, she would ask me this question, what I began to realize that the question is that I was not giving her, she was asking because I was not giving her any reasons to know why I loved her. Right? I wasn't giving her a reason to push out the different insecurities that she felt about our relationship or she felt about who she was. And if I had been laying kind of this foundation where I was constantly telling her the because, then she would probably never have a reason to ask that question. So I kind of set out on this mission to start putting this into practice, right? And at first, and it still is, it's really hard. I just started doing it this week, right? So I'm not like a pro at this, but it just kind of feels, it's not natural to add a because and then kind of have a statement onto that when you're used to just saying, I love you too, right? It kind of feels weird and out of place. But what I was doing though is kind of getting rid of this old foundation that's been there for years since we began dating and building this relationship. And what I've begun to do is replace it with this kind of stronger, even better foundation. And here's what happens. If you don't say, right, the good things that come to mind that you think, by human nature, your spouse just assumes the opposite. Right? Have you ever been, you spent a lot of time or effort on maybe a gift or maybe putting together, a dinner or something that you really invested a lot of time and energy in, and then you wanted it to be really special, and as you give it to this person or they're experiencing it, they don't say anything, right? They don't acknowledge it. They don't recognize what you've done. You're kind of like, whoa, wait a minute here. I spent all this time doing these things for you because I thought you would appreciate it. And because they didn't say something positive, you wind up assuming something negative. Right? You wind up thinking that, they don't like it, or I didn't do a good job. There must have been eggs or shells still in the eggs or something, right? And think about the last time you didn't get a text back that you were expecting, right? You're in this conversation and you kind of lay an idea or a thought, or you're vulnerable out there, and it's just kind of blank for the next couple hours, right? Your mind just starts racing with all the negative responses that this person is probably thinking, right? And I get nervous, I assume the worst, and it says it's delivered, it says it's read, but there's no little 3 dots saying that they're typing back to me. And that's why in marriage, to think something good and not say it, it robs both you and the other person of this great, great blessing. Every time you think something good, say it. Text it. Call. Write it down. Send it in the mail. Whatever you have to do. And then he continues on here in verse 5. He says, your head crowns you like Mount Carmel. Your hair is like royal tapestry. The king is held captive by his tresses. And if you were here some of the weeks before, you remember how much he enjoys her hair, right? It talks about whenever he kind of does this little hair flip thing, how he was like entranced, right? And here, this word captive that he uses literally means to like be put in bonds. It's like he becomes a slave to her, right? Every time you do the little hair twist or you do the little wave thing, he's like, I'm your captive. Do with me what you will, right? That's kind of what he's saying here in this verse. And then again, as he goes on in verse 7 and in verse 8, again, we got to kind of have to approach these verses very, very carefully. Okay, they're in the Bible, so we're not going to be afraid of them, but, don't, probably not going to be tweeting these later, okay? He says, your stature is like that of the palm tree. And he says, your breasts like clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb the palm tree. I will take hold of its fruit, right? Dun, da, da, da. That's in the Bible, right? Hashtag that is in the Bible, guys. Okay, now, I have to warn you, guys, you try this on your lady, and it's probably 50-50 chance, okay? Sometimes, we talked about before where guys are like microwaves, women, you're like crock pots, okay? Take some time. And one day you could not even have to say anything because she is inviting you to climb the palm tree, right? She is all about you taking hold of the fruit. And on a different day for no apparent reason, right, you could drop a line and all of a sudden she's snapping at you and she's telling you to get, as far away from the fruit as possible. It's just kind of the nature of guys and girls and being different. And guys just will take this verse and tell you to be led by the Spirit, okay, whenever you try to put this verse into practice there, okay? But evidently she is in a good mood. And listen to her response here in verse 10. She says this, I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me. Right, this word desire is this Hebrew word it's teshuka is the word. All right, it's kind of if you ever watch the Nature Channel or previews from the Nature Channel, kind of when the cat or the tiger pounces on their prey and takes hold of it by the neck and has it, right? That's this word desire, teshuka, that's going on here. He teshukas me, right? He's got some desire. He is pursuing me. She doesn't feel used. She feels loved and beautiful. She feels cherished and she feels honored because he's given life to the good things that he's thinking. He thinks it and he says it. And every time you think something good, say it. Bless them with it. There may be a season where you have a lot of good to say, right? Or there may be seasons where you don't have a lot of good to say. It may be hard. And so what, something you can do is just begin to say what it is that you want to see. Right? Maybe you have a spouse, a husband who you would love to see step up and be the spiritual leader of the family, and all of a sudden, right, he prays for the Thanksgiving dinner. Man, you start to go crazy about what he did. Oh, man, when you did that, I just saw, God use you in an awesome way. Look at you, and I see just strength, and just begin to speak all sorts of goodness into his life. Or maybe you feel like she doesn't encourage you that often, so when she does, man, if she says something nice, just blow it up. Just begin to say, man, thank you so much for encouraging me. When you do that, it just helps me feel strong and that, I can lead this family. Begin to just say what it is that you want to see, because your encouragement is going to help reinforce and bring blessings into your relationship. Every time you think something good, say it. All right, number 2, if you're taking notes there, number 2, if you think something special, then do it. All right, if you think something special, do it. If you think something good, say it. If you think something special, do it. So what we want to do is kind of break this down into 2 very specific special acts. The first one is just purposeful time. When we think about special acts, we want to be really focusing, how can we have purposeful time with our spouse? If you think about going someplace and doing something together, then don't just think about it. Don't just, daydream about it. Start to put plans into action and make it happen. Make it a priority to see it happen. This is what she does in verse 11. She says, "Come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside," right? Basically, she's saying, let's go to a bed and breakfast. Let's go to a hotel. Let's get away. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let's go on a little getaway where it's just the 2 of us, right? And obviously, this is probably a little easier if you don't have any kids. But if you do have kids, it's still possible to find someone to take the kids, or maybe you just leave them at home. I don't know. You decide what it is you want to do, but I encourage you to find someone to watch the kids. But I would encourage everyone, right, who's married to do this at least, once a year. Make it a point to get away and spend some time with your spouse. And there's going to probably be all sorts of reasons why you say or think that you can't. But I'm going to tell you right now that you can't afford not to. You can't afford not to. On Thursday, I was texting Chaz some Groupons for some getaways for us to kind of run and get away real quick. Just drop the kids off at my parents' house and let them know as we're driving away that there's a prize for them on their porch. But we had this idea, but as kind of life started to catch up with us and, some other plans came into play, it also happened to be the same day that Chick-fil-A opened. I don't know if you guys have been at Chick-fil-A, but I traded in our getaway for Chick-fil-A this week, I'm ashamed to say. But the reality is Chick-fil-A is kind of the special place for us, right? When we met in Florida, there's Chick-fil-A's all over the place in Florida, so we got to spend time in Chick-fil-A, and it reminds her of home, and it wound up being a very special time for us to kind of wade through the traffic and wait the 45 minutes for our food. It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it, and it wound up being like getting away. But it kind of had to put on hold our plans to go away for the night because we decided, all right, we're going to go out to eat, and maybe we'll go out later that night. My parents can watch the kids. But after we got done with Chick-fil-A, we were really tired, and we decided just to, after we put the kids down, we're going to buy a movie and watch a movie at home. And it was a lot of fun, right? We thought we would be able to do one thing, and we wound up not being able to, but we still got some time together because we were tired. But the reality is, right, is life is chaotic. And things come up, and it's hard with kids, and we can always just be on the go with things. But the reality is when we get these opportunities to get away to Chick-fil-A or to get away for the night, what we begin to happen is we laugh together, we cry together, as we're able to share. We're reminded of the things that first attracted us to each other in the first place, and you begin to reconnect in a way that you just simply can't do in the normal hustle and bustle of everyday life. It's just hard. Purposeful time. Some of you are going to have to say no to a lot of things most people say yes to in order to say yes to something very few people have. Right? If you want a relationship, if you want a marriage that is fulfilling and is brimming with life, then you're probably going to have to say no to a lot of things that people say yes to so that you can have something that very few people have. And I wonder how many marriages could be better, could be saved, or if they began to just make this a priority in their relationship to just get away together, to just have time of purposeful time together. And this is what she says. She says, "Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened and if the pomegranates are in bloom, right? She's saying, let's get away. Let's just you and me get away. And then she says, all right, if you're not following along with me, she's saying, this is what I'm saying. There I will give you my love, right? In the middle of the vineyards, in the middle of the park or wherever. All right, now, I'm not promoting that you give each other love in the middle of the park, sorry, because this is a different time and place, and we make hospital visits, but we don't do jail visits, okay, here at Forward Point. But if you ever, you get that feeling like you're not sure what is being talked about, they're planning to have some purposeful time together here, right? It's this idea, I tashuka you, right? I desire you. Ladies, when you tell them, hey, I've got it planned tonight, the kids are going with, whoever you decide to send them with, and we're going to get away, and it's just going to be the two of us, you are going to have one very happy man for the day. Let me tell you, he's just going to be excited and on cloud nine, right? As he or you plan all these, done all the details for this time for you to get away, right? And how you tashuka him, right? Or, you can stretch it out and get the most, for your bang for your buck there and tell him you planned it for next week. So he's just kind of putty in your hands all week and, whatever you got to do, but make the details, plan it out, right? And you want her to know that purposeful time together is important to you. Let's go to the park together. Let's go to the museum together. Let's just walk holding hands. We've got to do a lot together this week because of winter break, Chaz and I. And, they went out to Rochester on Friday, and we're planning another trip yesterday out and about. And, the time to come to leave on Friday was here, and she asked if I was going to go with them. I said, well, I got to do a lot of work to get prepared for Sunday. If you want me to go today, then I can't go tomorrow. Or if you want me to go tomorrow, then I can't go today. I got to get some work done. And the reason behind is because I want to be able to be fully present with you while I'm there, right? I don't want to have to be working in the car. I want to be able to enjoy the family and the kids and not have these work expectations weighing over me, right? So she let me stay home on Friday. I got my work done, and yesterday we were able to go out to the Corning Glass Museum, and the kids, had fun. We had fun trying to keep them away from all the breakable things, and we just had this purposeful time together, right? Purposeful time. The second special act is just thoughtful acts. If you think something special, do it thoughtful. Do it in thoughtful acts. This is what she does for him in verse 13. She says, the mandrakes send out their fragrances, and at our door is every delicacy, both new and old, that I have stored up for you, my beloved. Right, she says she's planned all these, she's got all the details. She got the, Wegmans delivery system, and all the groceries are at the door, everything that we're going to need. You may be wondering, the mandrakes here that she says, these mandrakes are like an aphrodisiac, all right? She's, again, preparing for their relationship. And he knows that, right? So for guys, you start talking about thoughtful acts, and our imagination usually goes as far as flowers or chocolates or get a card or whatever else they're selling around Valentine's Day, right? Maybe some jewelry. But throughout this series, as we've been talking about in life group, and we've had these different questions come up on what's meaningful, what's the most special gift, and it's not about these kind of dollar things you drop here and there. The thing that we kind of keep hearing come up over and over again is when the guys help take care of the kids, right? When the guys help make dinner or help with folding the laundry, all these different things that have nothing to do with cheap gifts from the flower shop or from the corner drugstore. And why? Why are these things so much better? It's because he is serving her, right? He is putting her needs before his own. It's a thoughtful act that is more romantic than dropping a few dollars on something. It says, I care about you, right? For me, if Chaz just did the updates on her phone, right, and stopped coming to me with problems that she's having with her iPhone, and I just saw that there was no little circle icons, red, saying that there's updates that she has to do for her system or for her apps, man, I would faint how much she would care about me to take the initiative to do the updates on her phone. That would be amazing. I'd probably fall over dead. Or if I got out of the shower and there was a towel waiting for me there in the bathroom to be able to dry off, right? Oh, man. She did something that she doesn't value because she values me. Right? That's the key, to do something that you don't value, but because you value the other person, that makes them feel special. When you think something special, do it. When you think something good, say it. And when you commit to these little things, you're going to be a big, big blessing to your spouse, right? Number 3, lastly, it's this idea that if you want something different, be it. If you want something different in your relationship, don't demand of your spouse that you have to change, that you have to be different. You be what's different. You decide, you commit to be what's different. If you've been with us from the beginning of this series, you may remember how way back in week 1, she says that, I'm not going to be like the other veiled women, right? The veiled women who just give themselves over, use their body to get whatever it is they want. She says, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to be different than all the other women that you see around. I'm not going to do that. If you want that, you can go someplace else, but I'm going to choose to be different. And he said, we aren't going to awaken love before its appointed time. Right? He's saying this idea that we're not going to get our relationship past our boundaries before we've committed before God. Right? Everyone else around kind of just goes by their feelings, go by what feels good, do it. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to awaken love before it's time. Last week we saw how this couple committed to be different and how they worked through conflict. Right? We're going to talk things through and not just walk away. Right? All around us, when we get frustrated, when we get angry, when there's tension, we just walk away and we don't deal with it. We just let it fester. But they said, we're going to choose to be different. And we're going to talk it out. We aren't going to react in anger, but we're going to respond by the Spirit. We're going to be different. Instead of assuming something bad about the other person, we're going to choose to think the best of our spouse. We're going to be different. You see, if you want something different in your relationship, then be it. Be it. If you don't like what you're getting in your relationship, then look at what you're giving. Look at what you're sowing, at what you're putting into it. You can't change anybody else, but you can change you through surrender to Jesus. You can be a blessing to them, and you can pray for them, and you can serve them, and allow yourself to be the change. And I know it's pretty easy to stand up here and kind of just paint with these broad strokes and make it sound like, if you follow these 3 principles, it's going to lead to happily ever after. And I don't want to ever make someone feel, shame because maybe you're in a situation where things didn't turn out happily ever after. Maybe you're dealing with abuse, or even now dealing with abuse or unfaithfulness, and have had to make some tough decisions that have affected you and the people around you. The reality is that you have to get before Jesus, and you have to respond to what he's calling you to do in your relationship. It may be hard. It may be hard to say, I'm going to focus on being the different. I'm going to lay down all the grievances I have, all the times that I've been put to the side. And if God is calling you to do that, that's, we want to be here for you. We're going to pray for you that's what happens. You may need to reach out for help from, maybe a Christian counselor or a pastor to help work through some of the feelings and the thoughts. But don't just settle for reaching out for, maybe a friend, a coworker who doesn't value the same things that you value, right? Because if you begin to go to them for relationship guidance or counsel, and their heart is not to honor God first, then the reality is they're probably going to pull you in a different direction than what you would want to go in. It might make you feel good. It might make sense to your emotions, but it's going to rob you of something better long term. Before I got married, all I could really think about was getting married. And now that I'm married, all I want is to leave this legacy for my wife that refuses to have what everyone else has around me, right? I want her to feel special. I want her to feel valued. I want her to feel cherished. I want her to feel tashuka, right? And I want so much for my kids to be able to see that and to not settle for meaningless relationship in middle school or high school or, the kind of things that I experienced. I want so much more for them. I want so much more for our church, right? For our church to desire these kind of relationships so that maybe our city might be able to see, man, there are all sorts of things going on. They seem to love each other, the way that they love each other. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And it might begin to pour out into our city. And as I choose to want something better for myself and for my wife and for my family, we begin to feel love like we've never experienced it before. She begins to experience it like she's never experienced it before. And as I choose something better, my kids will see something that will cause them to refuse to settle for anything less in their own life. And as I choose to be vulnerable before you and admit to, I haven't had the best foundation in our marriage and in our relationship. But what I am doing is I'm committing to choose to have something different going forward. I'm going to be different. You might do the same, and the echo would continue on as people around you, maybe in your neighborhood or in your workplace, would begin to see you desire differently in your relationships and act differently and see the beauty of the blessings that are happening between you. I can honestly say that I've never been more excited for the future and the direction that we're going as a couple and as a family. And it doesn't mean that we don't fight, right? That's the natural part of who we are, but we're going to fight better. We're going to fight better. But our marriage can be as good as we both want it to be, as we both decide, we're going to serve Christ and serve one another. You can experience blessing greater than anything that you could ever imagine. But it's not going to happen by accident. Right? You're not just going to kind of fall into it or trip into it or find yourself there one day. It's going to take some intentionality. And here's the effect that it had on this woman. You can tell a lot about a man by looking into the wife's eyes and what you see, the security or the insecurities. And if you look into her eyes and into her heart, here's what she has to say as we wrap up this series. She says, "Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm, like a tattoo, for love is as strong as death. Its jealousy unyielding as the grave. It burns like blazing fire, like a mighty flame." Right? She's saying, you are mine forever. My desire is for you. Let's fight to build a love that is as strong as death. Right here in our relationships, let's fight to build a love that is strong as death. But it's going to take some intentionality. Will you bow your heads with me as we close here this morning? All of us find ourselves in different places in our relationships, maybe preparing for a relationship, in a relationship that, you're hoping is going to lead you somewhere, or maybe in a marriage already. And the question that I want to ask us all here before we go any further, right? No one's looking around, but all of us individually, just to search your heart and ask yourself, do you want what you see around you, or do you want something different? Right? Is the place and the calling, the plans, the purpose that God has for you, is it like what you see all around you, or is there something different? Is there something else that he's calling you towards, that he wants for you. And I'll tell you, for me, here I am, 8 years, 3.5 kids into this, and again, just coming to this place where I realize, man, God, there's so much more that you want for me and for Chaz, for us together. And I've settled for too long, but going forward, I want something different. And if there's something inside of you that would echo the same feelings that I've been wrestling with through this series, no one's looking around, no matter where you're at. Maybe you're single, but for when the time comes, or maybe you're in a relationship, maybe you're married, but for wherever you're at, if you would say, Jimmy, I'm with you this morning, I want to commit and admit honestly before God to say, God, I want something different. I don't want to settle for just whatever is around me. Again, no one's looking around, but I just want to be able to pray for all of us. If that's you this morning and you just say, I want something different, if you just raise your hand, just to confess before you and God, just say, God, yes, I want something different. No one's looking around, just between you and him. Wherever I'm at right now, I want something different. God, you see every single person this morning recognizing, admitting to say, there's something more that you're calling me to, God. But I found myself just settling for what I see all around me. And this morning, I see the picture I'm drawn. I had this feeling in my stomach towards there's something different that you're calling me towards, and I want to get in on that. I want to be part of that. I don't know all the details. I don't know how it's going to play out. But this morning, I'm desiring to take this first step towards you and what it is you have that's going to be different. God, for all of us, that you would just help us here this morning when we think something special, we would say it, we would do it, we would be it. And God, as you begin to change our hearts, you would begin to change our relationships, and we would see just all sorts of fruit come out of these hearts that are beginning to turn towards each other again. And God, it would just begin to pour out and spill out from this building into the streets all around us. God, that we might see in Syracuse, God, just relationships, hearts being turned again back towards each other, relationships saved. As your Holy Spirit just begins to work through us and pour out from here. If you're here this morning and maybe you don't know what it is to have a relationship with God, the reality is this morning he's here and he is pursuing you. He said it, he did it, he was the difference for you. To have this relationship with you. And if you're here this morning and you would say, man, I don't know what is going on here, but I just feel like I want to be a part of this, putting my life before God and letting him have control and being a part of the purpose that he has for me instead of what I've been reaching for and striving for on my own. And I want to respond to the words that he has said. I want to respond to the actions that he lived out and be in relationship with him. Then in your heart, I'm just going to encourage you just to say something, to pray something to him like this. There's no magic prayer or formula, but it's just the spirit behind your words. Just say, God, I'm sorry for the things that I've done that have been contrary to the plans and purposes that you have for my life. This morning I come before you and I want to respond to this relationship that you want to have with me. I've heard and I've seen what it is that you've done for me, and I want to give you my life. So this morning, I give you the driver's seat. I give you the reins. I'm going to need these people around me to help me as I figure things out, but I'm going to trust you that you are calling me and you're pursuing me, you Tashuka me into this new life. God, I thank you for every single person who's giving themselves over to you this morning. I thank you so much for the journey you've had us on throughout this series. It's been impactful in me. Pray that the fruit that has been beginning to blossom from that, God, that you would just protect and watch over, and we would be a people who find ourselves caught up in this love song in our relationships and with you. Continue to use us in our community. Help us to help people find purpose. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much, church. As you leave, give some high fives, some hugs. Remember, all of our snacks and goodies are in the cafe area there. Make sure you hang out and let everybody know how much you care for them. Have a great week.